And a good Tuesday evening, friends. Thanks for joining us on the exclusive 13 News Now Plus streaming app. We've got a lot to talk about. We are now on Winter Storm's eve. Winter storm is heading our way, arriving tomorrow, late morning, and we are still expecting significant snow totals. I teased on my social media accounts that I've put some tweaks to our snow map, and some parts of Hampton Roads are actually going to see their snow totals go up here in just a little bit. We'll share that in just a second. But we've declared weather impact alerts for tomorrow and again on Thursday. This will likely be a pretty long duration event. Snow breaking on out by late morning. I think most areas are snowing by lunchtime. And then it doesn't really taper off fully until we get to Thursday afternoon. Now, we're looking at this in two separate waves. The first is going to be the parent low, the main storm. The second is going to be the residual upper level energy that's going to be hanging back to the northwest. That'll be coming on through behind the surface low as it exits. So that'll provide enough energy and lift that we'll likely see another period of some moderate snow for a couple of hours late Thursday morning and early afternoon. And then once that leaves, that'll be the end of it. So plan for travel impacts, significant snowfall, and overall major impacts across the board for all of Hampton Roads as we get into the next 48 hours or so. I want to show you the current imagery of satellite and radar. Our storm system is already taking shape. And if you look at it carefully, there are two distinctive pieces of energy. We've got the northern stream energy that's pretty much in northern Arkansas and southern Missouri. You can kind of see it outlined here. Of course, it's the northern stream. It's a little colder. It's interacting with the Arctic air that's surging in from the northwest behind it. And then we've got a secondary stream of energy, and that one is coming out of the Gulf, and that is pulling moisture in. These two areas of energy are actually going to be merging as they hit the East Coast and develop into a pretty potent coastal low. And as that intensifies, we will see our precipitation intensity go up as we head through tomorrow evening and through the first half of the overnight. How quickly it moves out will determine how long we have the heavy snow for, but I think it's for a good duration of time that we should see snowfall rates up and over an inch, maybe approaching 2 inches an hour at a time tomorrow evening into the overnight hours. So let's take a look here at our current warnings. We've got winter storm warnings up pretty much from Kansas all the way due east to the eastern seaboard. And that does include, excuse me, our entire area here in Hampton Roads. We were under a winter storm watch yesterday. And as I talked about, the watches precede the warnings. So now those have all been upgraded to a warning, meaning that wintry weather, impactful wintry weather, is now imminent, as I mentioned, arriving tomorrow around late morning. So what's the probability? We've got certain criteria to meet that warrants the issuance of a winter storm warning. And in our area, it's different in each Weather Service office, pretty much, depending on where you're located. But our criteria here to satisfy the winter storm warning, and why they've issued it, because forecast confidence is high that we would hit that criteria, is 3 inches of snow in 12 hours or 4 inches of snow over a 24-hour window of time. This graphic you're looking at here is the probability of actually exceeding that criteria. And you can see that the majority, in fact, almost all of Hampton Roads, is under the contour of greater than 80% chance. And when I show you the snowfall forecast, we may double or even triple those criteria totals in some areas by the time all is said and done. So some of the biggest snowfall totals coming our way in a while, in several seasons. Of course, we just broke our snow drought that lasted 2.5 winters. So this has certainly been the biggest snow in a long, long time. Let's walk through now the latest forecast modeling. So we're going to go through a bunch of different ones, but I'm going to show you the Futurecast radar imagery here on something that's a little different from what I shared with you yesterday. We were looking at the graph model yesterday. That's our in-house, excuse me, that is our in-house short-range high-resolution model. This one I'm going to show you tonight is called the HRRR, High-Resolution Rapid Refresh, and that is also a short-range high-resolution model. The reason I'm showing you this is because I think it falls a little bit more in line with our thinking of how the forecast will play out. So here we are at 6 o'clock in the morning. Keep in mind, or keep note of the time that's in the top right hand of your corner of your screen. This is 6 a.m. on Wednesday. What you're seeing falling is most likely some light snow showers and light flurries. Now, at this point in time, we've got a northeast wind, and all night that's going to be transporting in not only a colder air mass, but also a drier one. We'll have dew points at the onset that'll be down in the teens. Those numbers in the teens, air temperatures in the mid to upper 20s, that gap in between those two numbers is called the dew point depression. The greater that dew point depression number is, the drier the air is in place. And we have to overcome that number and bring it and shrink it down for the atmosphere to be saturated and for what's falling from the clouds to make it down to the ground. So at this point in time, I think that the air will be too dry. So what's falling here will be virga. If you're checking the radar app on your phone, you're on the 13 News Now Plus app, and you're looking at the radar, it'll likely show some snow, and you think, oh, it's fallen. But most of this will be evaporating as it falls into that dry air mass. Think of it as like a sponge that's absorbing the moisture as it falls. Once we saturate that sponge, we see it make it all the way down to the surface. So anyways, here's how it looks at 6 a.m. A few flurries out there. Now, I think we saturate pretty quick. And then you see here by lunchtime, according to the HRRR, almost, in fact, everywhere on this map, it's snowing by this point. Likely lighter snow to the north and west, and farther to the south and east, we'll see the heavier snow bands beginning to set on up. Air temperatures at the surface at this point in time are cold enough to support all snow throughout all of Hampton Roads and northeastern North Carolina. But I don't think it will stay that way for all of us. Here's what I'm thinking. As we progress through Wednesday evening, here we are at 5 o'clock, notice the deeper shades of blue. I'll pinpoint it here for you. Out in here in southeastern Virginia, we're talking Virginia Beach, over to Chesapeake, down into Currituck, Pasquotank, Perquimans counties, even into Dare and over to Currituck too. Heavier bands of snow. These could be the snowfall rates here that we're seeing of 1 to 2 inches per hour. However, also we're in a closer proximity to the storm center, a deepening area of low pressure. And what typically happens if you've lived here for a while is when we get these deepening lows, we get a fetch aloft about 5,000 feet up of temperatures that are as much as a half a degree or degree above freezing at this very narrow, thin layer, 5,000 feet up, or sometimes higher. It varies. And that's enough for the snowflakes that's falling from the clouds to hit that warm layer, relatively speaking, start to melt, but not fully melt, and then refreeze as it heads towards the ground. You can see temperatures at the surface are cold enough, so we refreeze and we get sleet. What happens when you get a couple hours of snow? You're getting accumulating snows, and then a period of sleet that begins to compress the snowfall accumulations there. You get a layer of sleet, and in this scenario that I'll show you in a second, I do think we transition back over to snow. So is it a guarantee that areas in northeastern North Carolina see a sleet transition? No. Most models say that probability is quite low, but knowing our area and the nuances to forecasting here, it's certainly, I think, a little higher probability than what models are showing. So we'll just keep that, we'll play that in to our snowfall forecast that I'll show you in just a minute. So here we are at 5 o'clock. We go through the first half of the evening, 9 o'clock, still snowing heavily in a lot of areas. Notice that rain, sleet, or that snow and sleet line here. That's the pink shading. Where it comes up against the blue, that's the transition of some sleet. Notice how that begins to back off, back down to the Albemarle Sound, because we're starting to get the storm intensifying, and even winds aloft are coming in more out of the north and east. That's pushing the warm air back south. So we're going back over to a cold column, allowing the snowflake to make it all the way to the ground. 9 o'clock, and then here we are, 2 a.m., just after midnight, Thursday morning. That line tries to push up along the immediate coast of southeastern Virginia Beach and over into Currituck, where we could even see, especially down towards Manteo, definitely a transition over to some cold rain. But interior northeast North Carolina, you're back over to all snow. We go a little bit farther out in time. That rain snow or that sleet snow line now pushes farther east and offshore. Everybody's back over to snow. At this point, intensity of that snow is probably dropping. We're down to more of some light snow showers and flurries, a brief lull. Because remember I said this is going to happen in 2 waves? The upper level piece of energy, look what's happening back off to the north and west, right? It's filling back in on radar out by Richmond along 85, 95 and west, and that area pivots back overhead to us. Here we are at 10:15 Thursday morning. We're looking at another burst of widespread, maybe moderate snow. This could lead to additional accumulations on top of what we already see. The map I'll show you accounts for both periods of snow, but there could be in 2 waves. So if you wake up Thursday morning, you're like, oh, where's the snow? It's just very light right now. That's the lull we're talking about. It should kick back in by mid to late morning into early afternoon. It's not until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe even later, depending on how quickly that band pushes out, that we see things start to quiet down. Now, as the storm is deepening offshore, the pressure gradient is tightening, and that means the winds will start to pick up at this point. This is as the snow is exiting. So what's on the ground? Likely the snow consistency, especially well to the north, will be light and powdery. So when the winds pick up, it's going to start to blow that snow around. We may have some snow drifts across the area. So that will also help to reduce visibilities on the roadways too, adding a whole different layer to the treacherous travel that'll be out there starting tomorrow midday right on through late afternoon, evening hours on Thursday. So here's how it looks there. And we could see gusts 30, 35 miles per hour. Look at the air temperatures at this point. Mid to upper 20s. We're talking wind chills down into the teens by Thursday afternoon. So once that snow comes to an end, it's going to be sticking around for a while. All right, here's the well-advertised updated snowfall map. I conversed with meteorologist Evan Stewart earlier, and we made a few tweaks, nothing drastic to this snowfall map. We just expanded our 6 to 10 inch swath. That includes areas a little farther north, now edging a little closer to Richmond. And we did scale it back slightly as you get down. Let's see here if I can pull up this pointer again. As we get down here towards Elizabeth City, notice there is a steep gradient, a steep cutoff from significant totals in Southside, dropping down to the Albemarle Sound, where you're getting down to 2 to 4 or 4 to 6 along the immediate water there, because of that potential of seeing that sleet mixing on and compressing those totals and lowering those numbers. But we did add a separate contour that's within the 6 to 10 inch, because we talked about all day today how there would likely be isolated areas that see up to 12 inches, up to a foot of snow. So that includes those areas there, which is all of Southside pretty much, and even up into the peninsula and southern tip of the eastern shore. There could certainly be some areas there, if we get that banding to set up right over those areas, that they could get up to a foot of snow in those areas. Considerable, significant totals for all of us, but those areas would likely see the jackpot. And, over the next 12 hours or so, we may have to adjust that based on latest models that come on in. And also, we're going to get into the realm of kind of nowcasting, because the storm is developing. And by the time it starts to snow here, we can watch real-time trends on radar. What's going on? Has it been performing up to what the models have been saying? Is it underperforming? That kind of thing. And we can give it a kind of a real-time analysis. So things will change a little bit, but I think we got a good bet here. Higher confidence that we are going to see 6 to 10 inches and up to 12 inches in some areas. If I were a betting man, I would say the closer to the coast, out in northern Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Norfolk, out in Hampton and Newport News, I'd say those areas have the higher likelihood of getting that thump a little bit higher to that foot of snow, if all goes according to plan of what I've seen with some of the latest models. Let's talk a little bit more about that warm nose. Okay, we do have computer products that can show us that level of the atmosphere and what the model's projecting in terms of temperatures there. So what I have pulled up here is the rendition of the GFS model with its 850 millibar temperatures, or 5,000 foot elevation temperatures here. I'm starting things off at 9 a.m. and what you'll see show up here from the south lifting north is going to be a blue line, and that is the line that marks the freezing line. North of it, you'll stay all snow. South of it, you have a greater chance of seeing that transition over to sleet. So watch how it plays out. We see it lift north, right? And then notice I stopped it here at 7 p.m. tomorrow evening, almost 24 hours from now. And that line does kiss southern Virginia Beach, kisses the state line, southern Chesapeake. But notice as we go through the overnight, then it retreats back south, because I told you it's going to be an intensifying, deepening storm that even aloft at 850, it's going to be pulling in colder air. So those numbers, even if they do jump to 32, 33, at 5,000 feet will start to come down. So it'll be a brief bit of sleet back over to snow if that happens. So just showing you what could be a possibility here into tomorrow night and early Thursday. Now let's walk through all of the models in terms of their snowfall forecast. You saw what we're thinking here. I'll refresh your memory once again. 6 to 10 generally, with some areas getting up to a foot. Okay? Now let's go and check out. We'll start with the HRRR. That's the Futurecast modeling I showed you. This is what that model thinks will play out with snowfall. Pretty close and in line with our forecast. Now, something that'll jump out at you on this map is Elizabeth City, Kill Devil Hills, significantly lower totals than everybody else on the map. This model, as you saw when I played out Futurecast, did show that sleet possibility coming a little farther north into those areas. which is likely why those snowfall totals, according to this model, are much lower there. Everybody else, south side, interior sections in northeast North Carolina, you're getting a half foot to maybe as high as 9 inches, according to this model and this run. Now let's check out what the graph model is, which is the Futurecast I showed you yesterday, which is high res, short range. Higher totals here, but notice Elizabeth City, up to 11.2 inches, according to the graph model. So disagreement there in the short term on the higher resolution models. That's showing that the possibility for sleet is lower. So that's why I said some models are showing the possibility, some aren't. So this is the graph showing that that's not likely a possibility in those areas. Look at Virginia Beach pushing towards a foot of snow. That's why we did those areas that could see up to 12 inches. The graph model there is certainly on board with that scenario, and it's not the only one. Here's a look at the NAM, which is another short-range model, but has a little bit longer of a range. It goes out 84 hours. So this was capturing the storm over the weekend, and now it's been evolving. And if you remember, this one was the one that started far northwest. It was like an outlier for days. And then over the last 24 hours, maybe 36 hours, it's been trending farther southeast. And it's really kind of set up and been more consistent throughout this area over the last 12 hours, or last couple runs, I should say. And notice that shows a bullseye of several locations on this map picking up a foot of snow or locally more. So that's the NAM model, right? So go back to the graph, high totals, higher totals here on the NAM. Now let's look at the Euro. Euro has been kind of consistent here with heavier totals closer to the Albemarle Sound, probably the last 3 or 4 runs. I talked last night how I was expecting this to kind of nudge its way a little farther north and west. There's still time for that to happen, and I think that has happened a little bit today. You see Norfolk up to 8 inches, 9 inches, Chesapeake, a foot, potentially Elizabeth City down to Edenton. This obviously doesn't have sleet mixing on it at all. It has a farther south track, meaning more cold air kind of getting pulled into this. And then finally, the GFS. Pretty good consistency, wouldn't you say, with all the models? So we've got the GFS, we've got the Euro, we've got the NAM, we've got the graph, and we got the HER. All showing 6 inch plus, a half footer for everybody, okay? So there's consistency here. Forecast confidence has gone way up. And the likelihood of us seeing at least 6 inches is very, very high. So there's the wrap up of the GFS. So that's the snowfall totals. Once the snow has come and gone, the winds will pick up, as I mentioned. So we'll have the blowing snow possibility. And then just bitter cold wind chills once again. It's been a while since we've had wind chills this cold. Down to mid-teens or so. And this is 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. After the sun goes down, actual air temperatures will likely dip with a fresh snowpack down into the low 20s, maybe upper teens in some spots. And the winds will still be up. So that's going to make the wind chill value down into the lower teens, maybe even upper single digits. So the cold will come in after that. So that's going to be a secondary issue, that everything that's on the ground will be sticking around. So I talked about forecast confidence here. We have high confidence of major impacts across Hampton Roads. And a lot of those impacts are going to come from disrupted travel. We talked to Norfolk International Airport. There's going to be obviously flight disruptions there on all the area interstates. If you've been out and about today, VDOT's been doing a great job pre-treating all the interstates and even intermediate and main roads with the brine mixture. And that's that white line. It goes down as a liquid, and then the salt is the white that sticks around. And that's supposed to limit the binding nature with snow to the pavement, or so that the ice doesn't blend to the pavement there. But I've read that that's only kind of effective down to 25 degrees or so. And we may have our temperatures there through a good chunk of time. So it's a precaution, but we are expecting significant disruptions on area roadways. So road conditions and the forecast for those roads are as follows. Wednesday afternoon, as the snow's coming on down, likely high snowfall rates and high intensity snow. You've got reduced visibilities already. You'll likely have several inches of snow on the road surfaces. And when we get high snowfall rates, VDOT can plow all they want. Once they plow with the high snowfall rates, you're right back to several inches of snow on the road surfaces. So it's hard to keep up with it at that point. Overnight, expect that to continue. At that point, you'll have snow-covered and icy roads. A lot of the neighborhood roads won't get touched by any crews for a while, if at all. So that's going to be snow-packed and icy with cars driving over it. So it'll be very, very slippery. So major disruptions Wednesday evening, overnight. And by Thursday morning, the snow will start to taper off. I mentioned how we'd have a second period likely happening. So there'll be more snow falling. And with the wind starting to pick up at that point as well, we'll have the blowing snow, which will introduce reduced visibility. So moderate impacts at that point as well. But if you have any errands you want to run tonight, I know it's closing in on 8:30, so it's getting a little late. But we're down to 28 tonight. No issues weather-wise. It'll just be cold. 28 with increasing clouds. Those clouds are the leading edge of our storm system. Tomorrow, weather impact alert day. Snow developing. Our winter storm warning goes into effect tomorrow morning and lasts right on through Thursday afternoon. So long duration warning for the area. We're not forecasting highs to get north of 30. 30 is pretty bullish. We might not even get that warm. Temperatures will stay well below the freezing mark, and certainly once our winds turn north to northwest, they'll start to tumble as well. So that's what we're expecting. I'll go back to my snowfall map here, and I did put up a post on my Facebook page. I'm sorry I didn't mention it at the start of this stream. I put up another post. Yesterday it worked out quite well, that it was a kind of home base for you guys to ask your questions if you had any, and I was going to try to get to them. So I did put up a post in there, and maybe some of you saw it. Let's see if I have any questions on here. Jason Layton wants to know, I know this is going to be a huge impact on the area, but I've heard rumblings of a follow-up storm in early March. Jason, let's get through this one first. All right. I have seen that as well in the long-range models, and I think we're headed towards an overall unsettled pattern. And as we've seen the storm track kind of play out this year, it's like every couple weeks that we see something sort of significant trying to get going along the eastern seaboard. Let's see. Anthony wants to know, do you mind sharing the latest graph snow totals? Absolutely, Anthony Genova. Here you go. Here is the graph's latest run. We will get an update on this. This will refresh with the zero-Z models probably in like an hour. So this is the latest graph. It's actually increased from earlier, showing 8 inches in Newport News, closing in on 11 inches, Chesapeake to Norfolk, almost a foot in Virginia Beach, and even Elizabeth City. So this is one of the models, like I mentioned, that doesn't show a higher likelihood of sleet mixing on it. But I will tell you, I think my gut tells me that we will see some sleet mixing on in there. It just always happens. And even when models say it won't, it just does. So we're just going to plan for that, and that's why we have the caveat in those areas that could see reduced snowfall totals because of that sleet mixture. But otherwise, looking pretty good there. Let's see. Sherry Marcano wants to know, can you give updated totals for Currituck or Maple, North Carolina? Yeah, here's our updated snowfall map, Sherry. So those areas, you're still in the 6 to 10 inch swath there, especially in northern Currituck. But farther south, I think there's going to be a steep cutoff, okay, if we do get the sleet mixing on in. And even far south, Currituck and then Dare County, will likely even see it rain. I mean, those areas rarely get full snow event, but it happened a month ago, that January storm. It was all snow down through the Outer Banks. In fact, it ended up being like one of their biggest snows on record in those areas. I don't think that's going to happen this time around. I think you will see the influence of some warmer air along the immediate coast through the Outer Banks and see some rain there likely. Let's see. All right, looks like that's all the questions we've got on here. I hope everything was covered. We will be on air on the TV side coming up at 11 o'clock on 13 News Now. I hope you're getting excited. We're on Winter Storm's Eve here. Schools have already been called for tomorrow, and some schools have already called it for Thursday as well. So, and maybe even Friday. Maybe we'll get a long 5-day weekend. Who knows? But that's the latest snowfall forecast for you, and I'll have an update. We'll have the brand new graph run coming up in 2.5 hours at 11 o'clock. So we'll see you then. Have a great night. Prepare. Stay warm. And we'll see you again tomorrow.